Welcome to the World XP Podcast, episode number 1. It's actually a conversation that, when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, that was the conversation. We were like, hey, you should start a podcast because you have good ideas. And I had considered it, and like we talked about in the intro video, Dylan and I, we had considered it, and then that was the conversation that we were like, you know what, screw it, let's do it. We'll get Samie and Izzie on, first episode, especially because you guys have been at all the bunch of the protests, what, like 5 now, I think?
6.
6? Yeah, so 6 out of like, 12 days now, you guys have been at these protests. I went to one, and it was hot, and I got tired after like an hour, so I can't even imagine like you guys being in DC at the, I don't want to call them more violent, but more potential for violence, given that it's right next to the White House and all the rest of it. So what have you guys seen when you've been at the protests? Like, what's your experience has been like? What have the cops been like? Have you interacted with them? Like, give me kind of like the whole rundown, I guess, of what you guys have seen, experienced, felt, the rest of it.
Yeah. So I was there unfortunately on Sunday after the initial incident happened. So this was in the very, very early stages of the protest. So that was still when the looting was going on and whatnot. So I went, and he unfortunately couldn't come with me. So it was me and one of my friends, and she was pretty nervous going in because she'd heard about everything going on. And initially, I just decided to go. I'm going to show my support, just because obviously, I have a stake in this. So I assumed I was going to go, chant and kind of like show my support, and then head home because it was a Sunday. And I wasn't really feeling, going too crazy.
And work in the morning.
And all that stuff. So I got there, and it really picked up quick. I got there probably like 3 o'clock, and then by probably like 4 o'clock, people were jumping fences onto the White House lawn. So we were, I didn't by no means lead the charge in that. People jumped, and I just kind of followed to get closer, to start chanting to like the line of police officers that were there. And they were shooting like tear gas into the crowds, just like targeting certain people that were throwing stuff. Because there were a lot of water bottles, rocks, sticks thrown. So, I mean, obviously I didn't participate in that foolishness. But I did get tear gassed and almost got hit with a couple of bullets just because of that. Because this dude was just kind of throwing stuff and then hiding behind other people when they got shot. I wouldn't even start shooting.
I feel like that's what happens. They throw stuff and they hide. It's like,
don't want to
I'm gonna throw it, but I don't want to get hit.
Yeah, it was so annoying. But and then we started to go around the White House, and this was honestly probably when it got the worst for me, because they blocked off the street and they wouldn't let us march. And that was probably because, as a result of guys who were on the cop cars, stomping window shields and breaking lights, and just dismantling any cop car that was within reach. And I was I didn't agree with that. That's definitely counterproductive. But the way they reacted was a little bit it was very uncalled for. They had their batons, they had full riot gear. They had their batons, and they were linked arms, and they were like pushing us and not letting us through. And then it got to the point where they would just start swinging at us once we got close enough. And then because they were in such a line, different areas along the line would break out, and it'd be pushing, shoving, and then they just come in with a mace and just start lighting people up.
Mace the whole line.
Yeah, and because a few people were pushing, now everyone gets maced. So, and I thought that was ridiculous, because you have these African American cops that there was probably like 6 or 7 of the 15 that were there. So actually quite a significant amount of them were African American or people of color. So they were actually being forced to mace their own people, and not just their own people, but Americans. And that were supporting and showing the support for something that they probably believe in. I hope they believe in.
It's almost. I wonder if it's a policy thing rather than like they're scared. Because if you're standing out there as a cop, I'm not trying to justify them, but just trying to get into like their heads of like why they do. In that instance, it's like you're standing out there all day. It's like you don't know what these people are gonna do, because you've seen some of them go stomp on cop cars, and then others you know. It's like, I feel like that's a very difficult situation, especially like you were saying, being a black cop in that situation.
They also, it could come from like the orders from above. You're trained to follow those orders, and I think you're in the whole police force out there to protect themselves. they've obviously shown over and over again that's what they do and they're trained to do as well. So if they have, with those orders and along with like just being out there facing the mob, you know, you're gonna be reacting in different ways.
Sure.
That obviously, not a lot of people are gonna be understanding.
Yeah, that's a hard thing. Like to get in the mindset of like somebody in a situation on either side. Well, I mean, you were on the one side, but you didn't. But I feel like it's for you, and you as well. Once you went afterwards, like you're right there, but you don't have the intent to go hurt anyone or break anything. So it's like a weird. I don't even know. So like, what was it like for you? Was this similar or?
Yeah. So seeing what went on Sunday, and it's nationally televised and everything. Going in, you know, at work, I can't really focus. It's Monday, keep in mind, and then I get off work a little early, pick up Samie, we go hop and pick up our friend, Uber into DC, and I'm a little nervous, right? I don't know if things are gonna pop off, you know.
Sure.
Am I gonna get absolutely just lit up with rubber bullets? Yeah. You know, it was very painful. So, but I'm like ready, you know, I'm ready to show my support because obviously, like it's me, basically. So yeah, just kind of we showed up. Didn't really know what to expect at first. You know, it was like, is there a certain time when things are kicking off?
Yeah.
But I did read at like 7 p.m. is when the DC quarantine was coming, or not quarantine, their curfew was coming into effect. Yeah. So that was going to be the ultimate cutoff, and they were going to arrest you after 7. So we showed up, protesting, chanting, obviously extremely peaceful. Everyone's making a lot of noise because it's what you do. Right. And I didn't see any violence or anything, but obviously everyone only seeing one aspect. So in my mind, I'm kind of reading everything. I don't see, you know, a lot of craziness going on. But yeah, so we just kind of go into the protest, get into the crowd, and then basically we kind of push up to the front, and you can just see just cops just lining everywhere, and you got the National Guard as well. It's like a cop and the National Guard. Right. So DC Police was out there in force, and DC National Guard was out there in force, and they were riot shields, batons. A lot of them had the guns that shoot the paint, the rubber bullets, and the tear gas. And you could tell. So what they did was they were lined out there, and everyone was chanting. A few of them take a knee. Actually, I think it was a few. It was a range of. It was a wide, diverse amount of people. There were a lot of white people that did it. A lot of people that just looked like, you know, they were sketchy. Did it. Yeah. So you did get a lot of a wide diversity, which is good to see. You know, obviously, because that's what we're here for, to support. Basically, like, because Black Lives Matter. And then. So kind of things digress, and they moved up really aggressively. I was not a fan of how they moved up at all. They just kind of moved up in line the fence, and I kind of come face to face with this dude, about a little bit shorter than me, and he has his rubber bullet gun, right? And I'm kind of just staring him down. He's staring me down, and I look in his eyes, you know, and I've been reading the body language of all these cops and all the National Guard guys, and looking in his eyes, and he looked like he was ready to go, like he was excited almost, and it was really kind of chilling, you know. And I mean, obviously, like I was sitting there kind of like just staring in his eyes. I'm not gonna be like backing down at all. But then I hear kind of like a commotion behind me, so I turn around, and there's that just moving up had already cleared out a good amount of people. And I think it was just me, Samie, and my friend that were there. And there's like nobody behind me. I'm like, what? And then I look at the people, so I kind of step back to see what's going on. And Samie and my friend were still there, kind of like having his face down, these people. And they were very like a lot of cops and National Guard members that were showing empathy, you know, to like they understand what we were there for, but you know it's their marching orders. They have to be out there. It's their orders coming from above. They're protecting each other. And it was good to see that, you know, it's good to see that, you know, that the cops can relate to what you're doing, but they unfortunately have to, you know, be there in force.
Did you have interactions with the cops that let you know that, or did you talk to them?
It was really just the body language. I remember they looked at my sign, they gave me kind of like had really sad eyes, gave me a nod, kind of like we understand you, but like, you know, we have to be here, kind of thing.
Yeah, keep the law and order and the rest of it.
Yeah. And they were really tired. Like a lot of them did not want to be there. You could see they were kind of slouched over.
Yeah.
They were getting yelled at by their commander pacing behind them.
Jeez.
But then at like 6:30, I remember they rolled out. There was a mad dash. It was like everybody ran, right? So and then kind of came back because that's how like the mob has been moving. So it's like you run and then you come right
it's
back.
Like a wave,
yeah, but you got to go with the crowd, otherwise you're getting trampled.
Yeah.
Like there's no in between. And then I saw this mad dash, but then I realized they had basically all the police officers on horses right there. And I saw them because they're huge, right? And then they have basically all the cops and right here afterwards, right?
I think you sent me
right
that
behind
video.
them. Yep.
Those are big horses.
Exactly. Yeah. So and then we took a knee, and then I'm starting to think we're boxed in, right? Like, am I getting arrested? Am I losing my job? Obviously, you know.
Yeah.
And then this cause is important, but what good am I unemployed? You know.
Yeah.
To my people. And basically, I was trying to like figure out where we're going, but as everyone's taking a knee, I like walk across the street, I can see that we are boxed in. So they're trying to funnel us a certain way, but I didn't know if they're gonna funnel us or just kind of keep us, you know what I mean? And judging by the whole atmosphere and attitude, literally the day before and the whole weekend, I really couldn't tell you. That's what I thought. And so then I'm on my way back over to where Samie and my friend were kneeling, we've been kneeling for a while, like 5 minutes, and then the shooting starts. They start gassing us with just a lot of tear gases, canisters, and then they hit you with the flashbangs. And the flashbangs, they're no joke. The first two had me shook, but then after that, they probably threw like a total of like 20 flashbangs. But after that, I kind of was used to them. But yeah, the tear gas was very painful. Inhaling it, was coughing, like eyes were watering, obviously, and it moves you. It's very effective. But then they started the horses. The horses were down, and it was like, it was like really shocking, at the time. But then you like adrenaline kicks in and kind of like instincts. You're not really thinking anymore. You're just moving and reacting, right?
And you felt the same way when the horses were there.
Absolutely, yeah.
That was it was a mad dash once they came out because you couldn't really stop because they were just trotting at you, and you had to run because it was so big. You had to run to keep ahead of them, and they would just run you over if you didn't run. So that was the.
Was that the day that Trump took the picture with the Bible?
Absolutely,
That was the day.
I remember looking at
yes.
CNN.
Yeah, that's why they pulled the horses out that day. Then probably, unless they were. That was the only day you saw them?
Yeah, I didn't see them beforehand. That was the only day that they had them out. But I did have a couple interactions with the individual police officers. So
what were those like?
on Sunday, after I'd been got hit with some shrapnel from a flashbang, and then I almost, I could see rubber bullets flying by me and just hitting flesh to my right. Got pissed, and so I was like, "Are you kidding me? We're just trying to walk through an intersection in DC." So I fought my way up to the front. We were fairly close to the front, but I fought my way up to the very front, and I'm staring this African American woman cop actually in the eyes, and I'm like, I look at her and I'm saying like, is this what you signed up to do? You signed up to halt a peaceful protest. You signed up to beat civilians. And I was like, is it worth your measly salary that you're receiving for this job? Like, is that what you tell yourself to wake up every morning? Like, and she kind of like gave me the same response that she had been given everyone else who was yelling at her, because obviously she's an African American woman, and she was like, we're just trying to keep you safe. And at that point I was kind of like, I can't fault you for building the wheel because you didn't build the wheel, but I can fault you for turning it.
That's a weird response. Like if you think about it, it's like you as a police officer, your job is to keep us safe, right? You're protect and serve the people. But especially those instances where you see them on video, like you sent me a video, and I think you sent me a couple as well. It's like you see people just walking through intersections, or like just walking down the sidewalk, and there's like rubber bullets. Like, why? How does that make it safe? That doesn't make sense. It's like it's a weird thing to think about their responses to that. Like if you, from just like a human to human, it's like, is this making it more safe? I don't think so.
Absolutely not.
So where does that response come from? It's like it's an odd thing to think about. Just something that I thought of when you were saying. I didn't mean to cut you off, but So was that the only one, or you had other interactions as well?
Well, I had another one with this was the African American male cop, and this was after we had decided to leave just because things were getting really hectic. And my friend, she was shaking, so I was like, we should probably head out. So we were on the way out, and I was kind of like, I'm really curious because I wasn't satisfied with the answer she gave me. You know, I'm trying to keep you safe.
I wouldn't be either.
I can't accept that. So I'm on my way out, and as I'm passing the White House, the things most people have cleared out, so most of the cops are just kind of hanging out and relaxing, trying to regain some strength. But I went up to him and said, hey, like, what is your opinion about all this? Like, how are you able to stand in, support of your job and then your institution in the face of this, this injustice, regardless of your politics, but in this injustice and these protesters that are just trying to have their voices heard? How do you do that? And he gave me a more heartfelt response, which was something I was satisfied I took that. And he said, I got bills to pay. I have to keep this job. And he was, he referenced the pandemic being, who's gonna pay my bills?
Sure.
Are you gonna be able to, or are some of these protesters gonna be able to? Because if I, step out of line, if I, take a knee, or if I refuse to, follow orders, and that might be to disperse your protests or whatever, I lose my job.
Yeah.
Because of that, he has to sit here, regardless of his views and regardless of his politics.
Yeah.
He has to comply, and that just kind of obviously it was a very brief response, but that just highlighted like it's not the people or the cops that are actually causing the issue. It's the institution that they represent that is actually causing the issue, and it's not that because they didn't build the wheel, but they spun it by these actions just because they don't have enough support, enough access to resources that will actually allow them to voice their opinions and show their support to the protesters.
Or even just to stay healthy. Like I don't know. I don't know the exact numbers, but I was on some article. It was like the number of police departments that don't have that many psychologists or like therapists like ready to go is like they have some, but not enough. It's almost like, and that's the thing where like when people say defund the police, it's like yeah, I get it, but also it's like maybe repurpose the money that they're getting, because like if you repurpose the money for a better training program, you have better like access to psychologists for psych evals, therapists, right? You like repurpose that money a little more instead of buying like the next new like Humvee with a laser gun on top or whatever it is, that they want to do. It's like you have to make the training harder, so once they become the cop, like that power thirsty guy that didn't have friends in high school that just wants to beat people up doesn't actually make it through and hit the streets as a cop, because there's plenty of ones like, I don't know if you guys saw the video of the sheriff in Flint, who was like, we're gonna march with you like around town or whatever. It's like there's plenty of those as well. It's just like, and then you see the ones you're talking about who are gonna follow the orders because they have to feed their kids and they have to pay the mortgage or rent or whatever, and it's like to differentiate that is like. And that's the other reason, one of the other reasons why we wanted to start this, because everybody's story is different. You don't know, like, you go up to that guy and you're angry. You're like, why are you doing this? He's like, dude, because I gotta feed my kids. It's like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, it's hard to come out of a situation where you're so involved, you're so passionate about it. Well, obviously, for a good reason. And it's like, you can't really argue with that answer, because everybody's on their own path of life. Everybody's on their own walk of life. And it's like, why did somebody do something? There could be like a gazillion different reasons why, and that's one of the things why we wanted to kind of start the podcast as well, as to like show people that there are a gazillion different reasons that you or me or you or Dylan, so like never considered why somebody did something, even if you don't understand it. It's like to try and get into their head and be like, hey, why do you think they did that? It's like, So I do know that you guys lived in Nairobi for 2 years, right?
Yep, we can, sir.
So I want to talk a little bit about your experiences there and how it differs to your experiences here, both from the standpoint of like how like different things that you notice on a day-to-day basis where you're like, oh, that's a little messed up.
Yeah.
And also just how the people are in general, like within the two places. So
Yeah. So we moved to Kenya starting freshman year of high school, right? Obviously a little bit of difficult time, just kind of as you're growing up.
Yeah.
I think all your friends, starting a new high school. Yeah, so we moved in the summer, so that I think we literally had like maybe a month, not even a month, like 2 weeks before school started. So we didn't really know what to expect. But international schools are really good schools because they have full IB programs. Some of them even have AP programs to cater towards more of like American style education.
Right.
And you have the kids of diplomats from all over. You like literally every corner of the world. I mean, maybe Kenya might not be the best example for every corner of the world, but maybe like if you take like a European country, for example, or something
London
like that.
or Paris
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah, for
But
sure.
Nairobi is like the kind of the central hub for East Africa, and that's I mean because it's a lot more developed, a lot more safe, and it's a beautiful place, honestly. And so coming in, you know, didn't really know what to expect. Not as many Americans as I would have thought, which was kind of cool because you get a lot of different flavors from all around. Like friends from Sweden, like from Netherlands. They were people from Germany as well, and they became like my really good friends. And it was kind of a culture shock actually. You know, I was just really. It was hard to understand sometimes why people did a thing a certain way or said a certain thing. The lingo was obviously different, but it was great to absorb that at such a young age because that definitely shaped exactly who we are today, you know. And yeah, so you had predominantly diplomat kids, and you know, with a diplomat gives you like elite status basically,
Right.
and you are most likely you're gonna look very foreign. Even if you're from a diplomat kid from another African country, you're still gonna look foreign because you just don't really fit the kind of like your average Kenyan look. Yeah, and your average Kenyan couldn't afford international school. It was like college tuition, but the embassy paid for that, you know. So
Okay.
and so every diplomat's kid would pay for that. But then you have these elite Kenyan people that like own the banks. Like one of my friends, like their parents owned the bank, so then they were able to send both of their kids to international school and get a great education, and then send them abroad to college. So it's pretty interesting, but you also don't really get a very Kenyan experience. You get almost like a world experience, you know.
Right.
It's really cool.
Nice.
But yeah, so then, but also you get kind of more into you start to think, and not that I felt this, but I could see people would think that they were better than your average Kenyan just because they're diplomats, you know. And they have more money than the average Kenyan, but also you think about like a minimum, like if you went from like on your salary now, went there, you would be an elite, a rich elite, right? Like, and that's crazy to think, right? And just because like obviously the socioeconomic differences,
Sure.
in to develop the country and everything. But yeah, so you have people that starts to get to the head, and they start to look down on your average Kenyan. And I can see that in a lot of my teachers as well. And like, it was
Teachers more than the students, or both, or did it kind of depend on the person and how they were just generally as a person?
Definitely depended on who you were as a person. But I personally saw it in my teachers more, and how they recounted stories and just expressed. You could clearly see their bias, and you could see just how they acted out in kind of public, you know. So yeah, it was very interesting, and I still keep in contact with a lot of those people today. So
how do they? We'll see you in a second, but how do they view? Well, I guess I can ask both of you. How do your friends from the embassy and the international school? Have you talked to them about like what's going on here, like how they view it here at all, or not really?
I've really reached out to a lot of them, but I've seen some of them post, you know, like Black Lives Matter, propaganda and stuff like that, and that, you know, it's like really positive and uplifting to see. So they're a lot of them are in support. So
That's good. I'd be curious to see what an international perspective on this would be. That's not just from the news or like whoever, just like your friends. I guess that would be really interesting to see.
yeah.
So how was your So did you guys get to go out into the city much at all, or how did that kind of work? Were you mostly in the compound, or?
No, we got fully immersed in it, and in Nairobi in its fullest, and Kenya as well. We went on all kinds of safaris, as well as visited many of the natural parks that they have there, and it was wonderful to see. It's something I was you can never get that experience anywhere else.
Definitely.
But more going back to the point that Izzie brought up, that elitist kind of idealism that was brought in by the elite Kenyans to look down on normal Kenyans. I had a Spanish teacher sophomore year, and she was English. She was a white English lady. She was teaching Spanish because she had lived in Spain for some reason. I don't know. She was cool though. But everyone was in love with her because she's kind of hot. But she started dating. I think she was doing some boxing classes. She started dating a just a Kenyan boxer or a teacher, I believe. And it got around the school because people talk.
Because people talk.
Yeah, and the general reception of it was so negative. Almost people were like, "Ew, like you're doing like, why are you dating him? Like why are you with him?" And they looked down upon him just because he was a Kenyan that was not of her class. And this goes back to the whole the socioeconomic structure that Izzie was talking about, is that if you are a white person in Africa, you are you're looked at as in a different light than an African in Africa. So if you are a white person in Africa, you can get away with a lot of things. And even people like our color, mixed in Africa, you can get away with a lot of things. Like you can really just bribe your way through anything. But you can't do that if you're an African or a Kenyan. So it looked as they saw that as she is lowering herself and her stature, and she's willing to give up all her privilege to in the pursuit of love, I guess. I'm not sure what she was.
That's a weird thing too. It's like where I don't know where that comes from. That view on looking down on people just because of you don't know them, they don't have as much as you, or they're have-nots, I guess.
Yeah.
I say that comes from just social structures in general. It's kind of been obviously capitalism is the haves and the have-nots, but if you look at just history, there are always people trying to better themselves and get up every morning to better themselves, and when they're in a situation where they are technically better in a better situation socioeconomically as well, you think you're more superior, and if you are light skinned or if you are white in Africa, you have money, basically. That's kind of almost synonymous. Because I don't think I've ever met a broke white person in Africa, so I'm not gonna lie.
There might be one or two in South Africa.
Yeah, good, but there's a lot of remnants from colonial age, when the British.
People that stayed, even though the British pulled out, people that stayed behind.
Yeah, and they call them Kenyan cowboys, which I thought was pretty funny.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but they were the elites. If you saw a Kenyan cowboy, you're like, wow. Now they weren't royalty, but it was seeing a Ferrari on the street kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then also the Indians. There's a huge Indian population because they were brought over to build the railroad. But a lot of them stayed. Where else are they gonna go? And the British weren't bringing it back. So, basically, when the British left, they were in power, and they were not took over, but they were put into positions to succeed, and that's why I don't think I ever met a broke Indian on the continent of Africa. I'm not gonna lie. That's another thing. Yeah, so there's a few of them, but not a few. It was a good amount, but definitely a lot. They're definitely the minority for sure in Africa, and there's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
and they do as well look down on Kenyans as well.
I think Russell Peters said a bit about that one time. He was like, "Yeah, I went to Africa and I stepped on the plane and I saw Indians, not one or two, millions of us." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that."
Yeah.
That's super interesting that you bring that up. It's weird. It's so I would assume that. I don't like making assumptions, but in this case, I think it's pretty safe to say that most of their wealth is a generational thing. Then.
Absolutely.
And so, what is it like for people that you met in the city that like people here who are like, I'm gonna grind, I'm gonna hustle, and then like a couple years later you're like, oh, like he made it. It's like, how is that a thing there or not so much?
It's not so much because here you're fortunate enough to receive the education and you have at least something so that you're able to look forward and say, I'm a grind, I'm also going to get to that level that you want to start at. But I believe that in Kenya specifically, people are so disadvantaged. They start with such a lower level that it's almost impossible for them to have their sights set on something higher in the future because
they're just focused on their basic needs, hierarchy of needs.
Like, for example, we were playing. I was on a soccer team there for a freshman sophomore year, and we played teams like these inner city Nairobi schools, and like they didn't have shoes. They played us with no shoes. And like I felt personally, being of African descent, I was like ashamed that I was playing with shoes and like, I was playing these kids with no shoes, and I was like, why? How is this possible? And obviously I was so young at the time. I was like 14, 15, 16 when I was there. So these are a lot of like summations I've come to, like looking back at my memories in the past. Because at the time I didn't know what to process. I was kind of just like, why don't they have shoes? They're a soccer team. So I was so confused, and at the time I was kind of embarrassed because we were getting dusted. They were tough. They were tough. like you could cleat one of them and they wouldn't even blink.
Just ate that right up.
So
walking through snake bites and bushes.
Like they were at a level where they were just focused on getting through the day and getting their next meal, or I'm gonna make it to school and I'm gonna make it home, and hopefully like I can find some food or something like that. So like that is such a different level than what most people experience here, because you have something to start out with. You have that ability to dream. And the worst part about it is, what's so cruel about colonialism is you take away the native population's ability to dream of a better future. And if you can't, if there's no hope for the better future, you're just kind of going through the motions. What's the point?
Yeah. But also the difference in the societies, if you look at in like the Western world, like the United States or Europe, you think, oh, if you made it, you're famous, you're rich, you're like a millionaire, you're driving all these nice cars, you got, you live in the fast life, right? But if you look at like in Kenya, like if you made it, you had a good job, like whether that was being a driver for a diplomat who tipped you really well, or if that was being a security guard, or just being a translator, making good money. And that is called, considered making it. Obviously, they see that pop culture and see that stuff from Europe and America, and they want it, obviously, because who doesn't? But it's, it's hard to compare the two because you can't, because the culture is so different. Being like, and everyone's really about their family there, obviously, everything really about, so like if you can provide for your family, put food on the table for your family, that is making it. And whereas we grow up as, obviously you want to put food on like the table for your family, but you want to be that guy, you want to be popular, you want to be famous, rich, and everything. So like to be two contrasts between the cultures was a big shocker.
Yeah, so even when I was in South Africa, the family structure was hugely important there. I don't notice it as much here. I don't know, would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah. Because you can kind of I think in the US you can kind of have more of an independent individual mindset, whereas you, in Africa, like in Kenya specifically, you need your family as a support system, whereas here, you can be a legal adult by 16 if you can get a court order.
I think there's something to that, the family structure and the support of your family, and people not escaping whatever situation they're in if they don't have that support of their family, or people like spiraling into depression, drugs, whatever, like whatever the situation is without the family. I think there's definitely something to that even here, as fortunate and as privileged as we are to have the resources that we do, I think there's still probably, I would venture to guess, there's probably been research and papers and all that done on the importance of the family structure. But I think that kind of leads us into where in America we have, I think there was some stat, like the rate of single parents in the Black community has declined significantly. And so what do you attribute that to, and how do you, if you could fix it, if you have a solution for that, like how would you go about fixing that? Because obviously there's other problems, right? Like just having parents is not going to fix all the problems. That would fix some, I would think.
Yeah.
So how would you fix that one, or what's your view on that?
So the declining rate in single
of,
parenthood or in African American communities.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's an interesting statistic. I'm not, so by no means do I can't relate to this. It's not something I keep up with because
Sure.
I was blessed enough to have both of my parents in my life growing up, and continue to do so. So I definitely would attribute a solution to that would be maybe the criminal justice system reform, because I don't know, there's been a lot of studies and there's been a lot of documentaries even on Netflix. They've gone crazy with a bunch of documentaries on this, that you are twice as likely to be incarcerated if you're an African American male.
Yeah.
That's just like a proven fact of many studies, and because of that, that's going to take you away from you, and whether it's just a couple of years or it's life, that's taking you away from your family. And then I feel like as you are in time, or you spend time in jail, or you're wherever you're serving your time, you start to think, like, am I good enough for my family? Am I able to support them even coming out? Because now I have something, a blemish on my record. I'm tarnished. So that I think that contributes towards the difficulties when you get out as well, because what can you do now?
Because you've got this thing on your record, and it's hard to get a job.
And even building on that's just one aspect. I think also, like, historically, you pushed minorities and like the black community together in public housing, ghettos, 1960s, right? Richard Nixon. That's what. So you have. I mean, their idea was to you put them in one place, you can control them, right? And so you like over police them as well, and you're building the wheel, right?
Right.
And so if you're building the wheel, and there's obviously there's an influx of poverty, drugs, lack of contraceptives. That's a huge thing, obviously you mess around, like you're 18, 19, you're not ready to have a family, and you're messing around.
You don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
and then you don't have your parents in the house to be like, hey, don't do that.
And then you create the wheel, and that thing is still spinning today. And in mass incarceration, obviously, sometimes your father's taken out of your life, or your mother's taken out of your life, or your bigger brother or the little brother is taken out of your life because they are arrested, they go to jail for huge, long sentences. Sometimes they are egregious crimes, sometimes they're just really minuscule crimes. But I think that, and when you pull people's support systems out of your life, you start to become derailed. So then it's easier for someone to look down on someone and be like, hey, he's a hooligan. Hey, he's this, hey, he's that, right? But you just don't know what that person is going through. I know, I think it's also important to think that, like, once that wheel's spinning, how are you gonna stop it, right? And it's really for sure very complex issue, but I think it's definitely addressing the socioeconomic, like, just the huge disparities in wealth versus in the African American community and minority community as well. I think that is definitely one way you would be able to begin to break the wheel, basically, and reinvent a better wheel and more sustainable wheel.
Yeah, that's interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. And you think about it, you've got someone profiting off of the involuntary imprisonment of someone else.
Yeah.
Someone's profiting off that, for-profit prisons, or even the state. Someone's profiting off that.
Somebody's profiting off every single step of the wheel, because if you think so, you have the prisons and the state that they send, like some of the state-run prisons, like they need to have people in there. So it's like, hey, we'll kick your taxes up because we need to run this prison because we got a bunch of people in here. And then you've got the for-profit ones that are the same, basically, except instead of taxes, I don't even know how they get paid, to be honest. But they need to have people in there to be paid.
Absolutely, you can't have an empty prison.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and so then you have the cops that whose job it is to put people in those prisons, and they need to get money, and then you could say, hey, look at our overcrowded prisons, we need more policing, let's give the police more money. And then the police are like, oh, we'll take more money and we'll go arrest more people because we can, and then the prisons stay full, and at the same time it's taking people out of the households in the black community, and then they don't have the support that they need to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to take responsibility for myself and I'm going to study or try to study because the money is all gone, so the schools aren't good, and they don't have a parent to be like, yeah, you can do this. I remember when I was applying to college, if my parents were not around, I would not have gone to college.
Absolutely.
Because I was like, I would rather just sit on my butt and play video games.
Absolutely.
And so not having that person there is, I mean, huge, obviously, and it affects the rest of your life. And at some point, I don't know, like, I feel like the news has talked about gangs a lot recently, but I feel like.
Oh, I was gonna kind of touch on that my next point.
Yeah,
so like
sure.
kind of with gang violence, you know, just looking through an anthropological lens, gangs are created when the state fails, right? Like a government literally fails that group of people. So gangs are its own government. I mean, and obviously, you know, they're not just because it's like gang violence is not at all. I cannot is unacceptable, but that is their form of government because those people just took power basically. But that's when gangs are started, and I think that gang violence is obviously a huge plague in the black community because you just were pitted against each other because of where you grew up, where you're from, what your parents did. So I think that if this goes along with the wheel, you know, you have people in gangs and gang violence is so prevalent that those people are easily killed or arrested. So that's another way people are dragged out of your life.
Or they take them in because they don't have a father figure or a family, and the gang becomes the family.
It's kind of like playing Jenga, right? But instead of just removing one tile, you're removing all three.
Yeah.
Right? And you're still hoping that thing just, you know.
Yeah. And then there's no way that it's going to stay stable.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah, it's, being a kid in that situation is like, like, I don't want to say like, what hope do you have? But also at the same time, it's like, that's such a difficult spot for a kid to take responsibility for himself. That's why it's like, when people are like, oh, they just need to make better choices. It's like, well, maybe, like, that's probably part of it, I would think. Like, people can make better choices. But at the same time, it's like, they don't learn to make those choices because of the wheel that we've been in, the cycle that we've been talking about. So it's like, there's truth to both. And I feel like it's presented to people in the media as like, the right side is like, oh, they're all lazy and they just need to get off their butts and shut up and dribble and do their job, right?
Yeah.
Like, get a job. And then on the other side, it's like, they're never gonna do anything because it's all like, they can't do anything because the system is against them. And it's like,
yeah, I feel like the easy, most
kind of
comfortable way to, you know, just write it off as like for like white people that don't experience this is saying, oh, you can make better decisions and you're good, right? But looking at every other aspect, the system is created for you to fail, right? But yeah, you can make better decisions. Like, I mean, for sure, if you don't, there are success stories. You can see and look around people who have survived, persevered through all of that, and now are, you know, a very productive member of society and very successful in that. And so I think 100% you have both, but I think it's super easy for someone to say this, you know, just saying, yeah, and they're taking like the easy way out because it's a little uncomfortable to talk about.
That's why it appeals to that group, and then at the
Mm-hmm.
same time you have the other side where it's like it appeals to the people that want to reinforce the welfare state. Say they can't do anything, so the government will do things for them, and then it's like there's like a reliance on the government, which is also not good because then you don't learn to, like, if that's all you know, it's like, how are you going to get to the point where you need to be making better decisions where the system is not against you? You need to learn to not rely on that. It's a weird one. It's because like you're relying on the system that's keeping you down, and you're never going to learn to get over to like this pot and be like, hey, I'm going to do what I need to do to be successful. And it's like this whole weird like, so it's like this needs to be talked about, but at the same time something needs to be done about this. It's like a micro level versus a macro level. It's like, what personally can I do today to make my life better? But at the same time, there's this whole thing that's really not helping your situation at all.
Definitely.
And so it's like I feel like both need to be talked about in a symbiotic, not symbiotic, is not the right word, but like they're two parts of the same problem, if that makes sense.
And I think the underlying factor is, well, how did you learn? to have to make better decisions.
Because I
That's
had
definitely education.
I had the education and the support system within the family, and the family was there because they're not in jail or dead.
Yeah.
So
that's definitely an issue because schools are obviously funded by property tax, and due to redlining and whatnot in the ghettos that we were mentioning, ghettos we mentioned earlier, you've got underprivileged kids whose properties are not worth the same as the white suburban neighborhoods.
Right.
So now you've got these schools in these white suburban neighborhoods that are like 10 times better, 10 times more funded
they give
because
their kids all laptops and like all the rest of it.
and then you've got these schools that don't complete disadvantage. You'll be lucky to find a couple desktop computers in there.
Yeah.
And obviously, being growing up the way I did, I was blessed enough to always go to a well-funded school. But I'd always, for sports or for just other visitation purposes, I would go to other disadvantaged schools, and I'd see some of the stuff they were going through and the stuff they had to work with, and that was something so natural to them.
It's probably shocking to you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was kind of like, how is someone expected to succeed given what they're working with, and they don't even see it yet. Like they won't even see it until maybe later on in their life when it's time as the opportunities are to pass. They won't see, wow, I was really disadvantaged, and at that point it's too late because there's been entire generations that have gone through this whole system. So that is definitely one of the biggest issues. Like for example, we were playing a school in DC for basketball, and we pulled up and we had to go through a metal detector and had to be like patted down going in. So confused. It's like we're going to school playing basketball. We're not. I don't know what we're trying to do here. And then every one of their athletes came out and like had to be searched as well, and they had to have clear backpacks because you had to see the police officers had to be able to see right in that they didn't want to search every single bag. So you had these guys with see-through backpacks that were automatically just seen as these people that are just gonna mess up and try to cause violence or try to disturb the peace or do whatever, just nonsense. Even if it isn't violence, it's just some nonsense. And if you're seen as that your entire life, why would you start to think?
Yeah, it's hard to like if you're told that so many times. Like there's only a certain number of times before you're like, wait, is that true?
Yeah, they start to believe it.
Yeah, it's weird. And then like to constantly be. So obviously I can't speak to this, but I feel like seeing how the media runs things. It's like as you're constantly told that the whole thing is against you, you can't do anything, like you need to wear a clear backpack, and you need to be searched all the time because we think you're gonna be violent or whatever. It's like the pressure's coming from the top through the media as well. Not just through policing and the rest of it, but it's like it's being reinforced by media. I don't know, do you guys find that like how do you guys feel about that?
Just go on to repeat questions.
So like you guys were saying, like we were saying, as far as you can only take hearing something so many times before you're like, oh, is that true? Like, you feel like that's perpetuated by the media as well, like them like just barking, like, oh, like we need more policing because they're all like they're violent or whatever. Like, have you guys noticed that within yourselves? Like, especially being Muslim as well. Like, have you noticed that from both perspectives?
Yeah, you can definitely have like a lot of outside sources kind of just pushing you to be what they want you to be or what they think you are. So you hear someone saying, "Oh, you're a hooligan, you're a menace to society," and stuff like that.
Right.
You're being angry, obviously, but then you're gonna move and like you hear this every single day. Like you're gonna start to fit that template that they've already made for you, pre-made. And it's unfortunate. Also, this is happening at such a young age. Your brain fully doesn't develop as a male until you're 25, right? And if this is happening when you're like 14, 15, that's crazy. Like it's looking back at who I was when I was that young. It's just like night and day. I can't even relate almost.
Me as well. Like, why did I say that stupid thing?
Exactly. And it's crazy how your decisions back then can morph your life to how it is today now. Like if you say you got arrested in a couple felonies and stuff, I would be in no place to be sitting here right now talking about this, and I would be struggling. I would be in the place I am now, which I'm forever grateful for. But I think that it's like I don't want to make it like compare us to cattle, but like if you're herding cattle to a certain place, like you have certain tactics to do it, and I feel like
like the media and government and stuff like that does that in a way to the black population in the U.S., which is extremely unfortunate. You know, like I have kind of a personal story about like that. You know, just like stereotypes. You know, I was in seventh grade. I was in math class. Not really paying attention because I hate math.
Who paid attention to math?
Exactly. But this kid who was sitting next to me, craziest thing enough, his best friend was black. And he turned to me, I will never forget this, and he said, yo, so like, why don't you have big ass lips and a big ass nose like the rest of them? And I kind of sat there just shook, like, what just happened? And as a 13, 14-year-old, I would think about that. Why don't I fit the template? Why am I not, you know, like that?
Yeah.
Because, you know, like you're in school, you're taught all these things, and all these things are shoved down your throat to view the world a certain way. But then I found myself thinking, why are my lips not huge? Why are my, you know, nose as big as this kid says, right? Which is obviously now, I think it's just absolutely egregious and racist what he just said, and makes me angry now. But at the time, being so young, you don't know that, you know, and it's hard to process.
The kid doesn't know that either, so that's
Absolutely.
either the parents or like the TV that he's watching or like something like
It's
that.
definitely came from his parents, and it's what like the white population sees like black people as, you know.
Yeah, in movies and TV shows and the rest.
Yeah, people come in all types of like shapes and sizes. So and it was now I completely understand that, you know. And just revisiting all these stories the week leading up to this, I kind of was shocked, like at how many things I just experienced and just kicked under the rug. It's kind of like scary.
You almost
like,
get used to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
At a certain point.
It doesn't even faze you at some point, and you're just kind of like, all right, dude.
Well, yeah, I actually tweeted something earlier this year, or
No, you're good.
No, I definitely agree with that. I was like growing up as looking different than when I did. We grew up in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. That's a very white area. It's got the demographics is completely different. It's something that like you wouldn't expect looking at Phoenix, Arizona being so close to the border between Mexico. You have a lot of huge Hispanic population, massive white population, and a pretty large minority of Native Americans. And
like Navajo and the rest that are still in there. Okay.
Yeah, and they're all moved to reservations, which is unfortunate because those Indian reservations are probably like some of the worst conditions I've ever seen. Well, it's kind of fact that Native Americans are the most marginalized minority group in the U.S.
Absolutely.
For sure.
But so that was really unfortunate to see it. So at such a young age, you're like 7 years old, driving through some of these reservations, you're like, wow, what the hell?
Yeah.
But growing up, I kind of I started to notice I didn't look like other kids in kindergarten. And the kids, because before then, kids don't really see race. No one sees race, and it's something you're taught.
Playing with race car and whatever else.
It's something we're just, we're all just hanging out in the street playing. And I just remember like going, I was in kindergarten, coming back from recess, and we were all like sweaty because it's hot in Arizona. So we were sweaty, we were playing. Come back in, and someone goes like, because we're all sweaty and hot, and someone goes like, why is your skin dirty? I'm like, what are you talking about? I kind of looked at them like, what do you mean? And they're like, like
when you were little.
Yeah, but kindergarten. So like, why is your skin dirty? And I was like, what are you talking about? My skin's not dirty. And they were like, she was a little girl. She pointed out every single person in the daycare who was kindergarten class that was white, except for me. And then she was like, look at your skin and look at theirs. Like, what did you do to your skin? Like, why is it dirty? And then I was like thinking, well, I don't know. And then I was thinking, I'm like, what did I do? And then I went home and told my parents, and I was kind of like, what did I do? Like, did I do something wrong? Am I dirty? Do I not shower enough or something? And they were just like, they thought it was funny at first, but until I told them the whole story. And then they were like, okay, now it's time to have that conversation with them. And it's now like, it's been ingrained for me, ever since that day in kindergarten, up until now, I still get reinforced this. That like, because I look the way I do, and because I'm a Muslim American in America, I'm gonna have to be that much better than everyone else. I can't give anyone a single reason or even the chance to call me out or say that I'm inadequate. And this also brings it back to the protest that everyone cared for a week. It was like a fun little spirit week. Yeah. And it's like you could go back to bed and you wake up and you have all this privilege.
Post a black little square.
And yeah.
Delete it 12 hours later.
Yeah, I can't do that. I wake up every day and my skin color is the same. You know, my religion is the same. I'm still, treated as a second-class citizen, and it carries over to every aspect of my life. And it's something I'm just used to now. Like it would be, as weird as it sounds, it would be weird if I could get a job using my full name. It would be weird if I got paid the same as my white coworkers. And now that I think about it and say those things, makes me ashamed almost, like, to even think that was normal.
Yeah.
That I have the same qualifications, same school, same amount of experience, yet I'm valued less because of my skin color, of my religion, and I'm paid and treated as such, even in the workplace and in daily life, which is.
That's a weird one, because you know these people, and you know they don't mean, like, usually they don't mean like harm, like it just happens. Just because, like, I almost feel like it's a lack of exposure to people of other cultures and other races and those sorts of things. It's like back to like all the way ancient times. Like, if you were in a different tribe, it was like you're other, I hate you. And it's like, if you don't know those people, it's like, you look different from me, I don't like you because I've never met anyone like you before, whatever. And then it's just like all the way like back, ingrained, deep, and
unconscious bias.
Yeah, it's like a fear. It's like a fear of the unknown almost, and it's like it's weird. It's weird that like it's been turned into like unconscious bias is a good term for it, but it's been weird that it's turned into like, let's do more diversity training. It's like once it gets to that point already, it's like it's almost too late. It's like you need to learn when you're little, like to do that, and that's another interesting. Dylan, how are we doing on time?
Good.
What are we at? Like 2 hours?
50 minutes.
Oh, almost not even the same thing. Lose track of time.
Yeah, I just want to touch on a quick, like, going back to that like innocent racism I experienced as a kid. Like there was a tweet that said, "What was your first experience with racism?" And I responded kind of, white kids shoving pork products in my face, trying to get me to eat it at lunchtime, calling me a terrorist, making jokes about my immigrant African father, also making fun of my name to the point where I asked my parents why they named me Izzie in the first place. And then, kind of like, I didn't tweet this as a sob story. I don't want people reaching out to me, "Oh, I'm so sorry this happened to you," It sucks now, but at the time, like, I just got used to it. That was normal, It's just like waking up in the morning, put your shoes on, put your socks on, go to school, go to practice and stuff. So it was the normal, but it's like, yeah, you have tough skin, and but now, like, and I said, basically, I used to all that, and that was the norm. Like, walking without shoes for 23 years, you learn to have some pretty tough skin, but that doesn't mean after all these damn years that I don't need some damn shoes.
Yeah, I feel it.
So I thought, and then I got a lot of like positive, like people reaching out positively, and I just kind of wanted to like clear the air, thinking that that's not what I intended for. It wasn't a sob say, "Oh, look at me, I experienced it." That's reality, and like now I'm just now like knowing that was not okay, and that there's an extreme fine line between racism and bullying, And racism and bullying, I'm not at all downplaying bullying. I think it's a big problem too, but you just can't. White people just don't understand how it affects a colored minority kid to be treated and to just experience racism like at a young age, like in kindergarten. We're getting stuff like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wacky. It's like, because I've never experienced it, and I got lucky because I was exposed at such a young age to all sorts of different people, cultures, races, whatever. Like, I've come up kind of my view on. It's weird because you see people that have no idea. That will be like, well, I just try and treat people with respect. And it's like, okay, well, yes, but did you put yourself in their shoes or try to? Which, another reason why I thought this was the perfect first episode for this podcast is like, I want you guys to come on, which you've done a great job of, tell people like what it's like in your shoes. haven't experienced it. They haven't been around. Like, I've been around you guys for like 6 years. It's like, I still don't know. Like, I've seen some things happen to you while I'm with you, but it's not directed at me, so it's not the same thing. And so I've been lucky in that aspect that I get to see it with you guys. Lucky's not really the right word. Lucky to be exposed to that, so I understand more, right? Because like I'm never gonna understand, like I'm never gonna like have somebody follow me at Walmart.
Yeah.
It's just like it's not gonna happen. So it's like, and it's a thing that most people don't have to think about. And then when it's like you have to think about it every day, all the time.
Yeah.
It's like it's like exhausting, and it's the same thing. And then when, like, for people to be like, oh, I'm tired of seeing this on social media. It's like, okay, cool, you can turn it off. You guys can.
Yeah.
And like,
can't turn my skin off.
Yeah, no, and that sucks. And then to hear it on the news all the time, and then to have people be like, oh, well, we need to give them more like welfare or whatever. It's like, and then hear like just everybody argue about stuff that they know nothing about. Like on the news panels, like a bunch of white people, and they're arguing about what the black community needs. It's like, why don't you go ask them? Like,
yeah, go ask them and go get some actual people and officials that actually know what's going on. They can act. They're educated and they're able to depict and quantify the struggles that we go through. Because by no means am I a social advocate, and by no means am I able to speak for the African American community because I'm a light skin. And there's a privilege. There's a difference between a light skin versus a full African American, and that is unfortunate. I have a light skin privilege. Like if you see a whole car of us, full of us, are you instantly gonna think thugs, drug dealers or something? Probably not. But you might be like, those guys are sketchy.
Yeah.
If you see a car full of full African Americans, you're gonna automatically be like, something's going on, something's wrong. Yeah. So you're definitely that's just a small insight into light skin privilege.
Yeah.
I have the ability to go through life differently than, for example, my dad would.
Yeah.
That because he is full African American.
Yeah, that's another example of like fear of the unknown. It's like you're slightly less unknown than like somebody who's full would be. To like the vast majority of this country. It's like, and then you see the levels in how that's treated. Like you said with the car, it's like if it's kind of unknown, it's like it's a little weird. But if it's like full unknown, then it's like fear.
Yeah.
And it's a whole thing. And then the thing is, you need people in those systems, advocates. So, well, there's two things. So one, Kevin Hart was on Joe Rogan's podcast the other day, and he was talking about how he's working with Northwestern Mutual or Goldman Sachs, one of those big finance companies, to go into the inner cities and teach that like black kids about financial literacy. Great thing. He made a point to say that some of the people on those boards were like, well, we'll just send our people in. He was like, no, you can't do that because they don't trust you because you haven't lived in that situation. You don't understand.
Yeah.
And so that's important. So like the people on the news are like, well, why don't you just go ask them? It's like, well, it's hard because you need somebody who is a go-between almost. And those people, in my experience anyways, are not that easy to find. Ones that can like have a position to make a real change, have a vested interest in making that change, and then are willing to do it on top of that. So you have to like all those three things, because once they're in a position to make that change, then they get caught up in the whole political system where it's like, oh, I got bills to pay, like I'm just gonna do my job, I don't have a vested interest in making this change, I don't wanna stick my neck out there because I'll get fired.
Yeah.
And so then it's super hard because you get somebody in that spot that wants to help, and then they get swallowed up by the political machine. It's like, yeah, I don't wanna help anymore. I live with keeping my job.
Yeah.
And so then the wheel continues to turn because you don't have those people in the positions to make the change that have a vested interest in making the change. Same reason as like black congressmen aren't going to vote on term limits, because why would they vote themselves out? They don't have an interest in doing that. They don't care, because all they do is just push, like keep people divided, go for re-election, and just sit up there, vote themselves raises every couple of years. They're living it up. Why would they vote themselves out of that? There's no reason for them to do that.
Yeah.
But then it goes back to, okay, well, what's the purpose of the government, and why have we got to the point that we have, where they can just vote themselves pay raises and not vote themselves out and get sucked up into the system and email the media talking points for the day. And like, even if you're wrong, you can be wrong the way that the parties say you can be wrong, and then you're okay because you'll get the next job with the consulting contractor, the think tank. I think Crystal and Sagar were on Joe Rogan, and that was a great episode. They were talking all about that. Like, if you stay within the party structure, you will always have a job, no matter what your thoughts are about that subject.
Mm-hmm.
And they say like, they can go and turn on TV and be like, ooh, I know what question's coming next, word for word, because it got emailed earlier, like from the campaigns. Like Crystal worked for MSNBC. She was like, the Biden campaign would email us what to talk about.
Yeah.
How it like, and so it's weird. It's like you look at the whole wheel. No one has a vested interest because they're in the political wheel. It's like, how are you supposed to change? And it's weird. So, if you had a magic wand, what would you do?
I would start with the education system. Definitely make it, instead of schools being funded by property tax, fund it federally and equal. So if we start with equal schooling, then hopefully through some obviously it's gonna take some time, but generations will come out of school at the same level with the same ability and same education level. So that's definitely the first thing I would touch on. Then I would look at prison reform. That's, you got prison labor. That's literally, it's servitude. It's slavery. It's modern day slavery. You've got African Americans who are in Texas. It is actually mandatory. It's unpaid to perform prison labor. That's literally slavery. It's like the definition of it. So that's got to go. You can't be paying. Obviously, if an inmate wants to work, let them work.
Yeah.
That's obviously a great way to spend your time in bettering yourself and send the money somewhere they would need to go. Send it to the family or keep it in a bank account for them when they get out.
Yeah.
But pay them the same as you pay any person who out on the outside would be doing it, because
the corporations
there's no difference
are going to have a vested interest in changing that because they're getting cheap labor. So
incredibly cheap labor. So, and there's obviously some very talented people that are behind bars, so that they're just utilizing that.
Right.
And then I would also change the pop culture and stop, like, I don't want to say like popularizing African American culture, because African American culture is so rich and just so diverse because it comes from so many different regions of Africa because of the whole diaspora. I would say just try to stop fetishizing it. Like, stop having these white kids running around thinking it's cool to say the N-word, or like get tats and stuff like that, or like just act like a clown here and there. Just using and embodying incredibly disrespectful racial stereotypes towards the African American community,
and only when it's convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So only when it's convenient, and you don't experience the disabilities that they have, but when it's cool for you, you could do it.
Yeah.
And you see it. Man, I'm definitely not quantifying it properly for anyone that's listening to this, but there's a ton of people, especially I saw this in college, and that was probably the worst experience for me, because I'm racially ambiguous. So you could look at me and you'd be like, I don't know what you are, dog.
Yeah.
So I've gotten Spanish, Brazilian, Middle Eastern, all kinds of stuff. I think it's kind of funny because I just blend in anywhere. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
But I saw, in many different aspects, I see kids that are just, like these average, for lack of a better term, white boys that are running around thinking it's funny to say the N-word, say some of these, like, I don't even want to repeat them. They're just so disrespectful that they actually hurt my feelings, and it wasn't even aimed at me.
Yeah.
So they just need to stop fetishizing African Americans and African American culture. That should be something that's enjoyed and shared, but it should by no means, you shouldn't have white girls being like, ooh, like, I want to try like some dark chocolate or some shit. What is that?
Yeah. That's a weird thing. It's a fine line between like enjoying and sharing, and then the line where it becomes like, oh, okay, that's not really okay anymore. It's a weird one, because it depends on the friendships you have too. Like with like me, like if I'm with you guys, it would be, not that I would do anything disrespectful on purpose, but like it would be tolerated way more if it was somebody that, me versus somebody that you didn't know. So it's like a weird one because like
Absolutely.
it depends on. And we talked about this too. It's like, okay, where do you draw the line with jokes? It's like, well, with us, it's like if we're hooping and whatever, it'd be like, oh damn, your black side showing today because you almost dunked it. It's like, oh, that's funny, but like if it's somebody that you didn't know, it's like then it's like, oh, why did you say that? It's like, it's a weird one because there's like this weird like gray area of friendship versus not.
And going on that point, I think that is like one of the toughest things I've been fighting with this week is this, that realizing that like, you know, I had all these white friends growing up and I was really good friends with them and they were really nice to me and everything, is because, and a lot of times it was because they liked me and Samie, right? They loved us as a person and accepted us as a person, and but they despise and didn't, or racist towards black people. So we were one of the good ones, or we were some of the good ones, right?
Yeah.
And they loved us but didn't despise our people, right? And I would see this all the time. People would make sketchy comments all the time, and you know, and I just processing it at the time, I just didn't know what to make of it, you know.
Yeah.
And just this whole week leading up to this, I just really have just looked back on all these different things that I've seen and witnessed and experienced. That it's just kind of crazy that like now that I understand, like it hurts, man. It really hurts that all those people liked me for who I was, but despise kind of like who I was.
The ones
like,
that they didn't know.
Exactly, the ones that I didn't know, my people, you know. And that was one of the toughest things to come to kind of like come to.
Yeah, and that's a weird one too, because it's like you have friends that are like you said, but then you have friends that you're just friends with, and it's like, well, how do you know? It's like
it's pretty difficult to tell. And so exactly going off that, like I think that is one of the most difficult things to do. But I think the best person that has been able to balance the two, and that I've ever met my entire life is my mom. She's a white woman from small town Minnesota. Probably had met three black people growing up. And then finished college and decided I'm about to just move to the other side of the world. So she started off in Thailand, living there for a little bit. Did some time in Bangladesh as well. I'm also like fucking up chronology like this, but then she came to Sudan, which is in Africa, and so she really is out of this really incredibly small town. We got like a couple thousand people in there. Everyone knew everyone. Now she's in the middle of Sudan, and you've got Africans everywhere, and she's this this white lady that everyone's like, oh really, like oh American, what's up, so. And she met my dad, and it was obviously a really cool story together, and that's really, really, really nice to hear. But even after that, coming back to the United States, she doesn't like say, oh, I can say these things because I have a black husband and because I have mixed kids. She's incredibly respectful of what we go through because she knows she could never understand, and she can only just support us. She can never understand, but the only thing she can do is support us. And just the same thing for my dad, for my father. So she embraces the culture, and she was wearing the traditional outfit for women in Sudan, which is really cool to see her do to adopt the culture, but not fetishize it. It wasn't.
Exactly.
It wasn't like, ooh, like look at me, I'm so foreign, or I'm so like
Let me take a picture of me doing this, post it on Instagram, and then go change immediately.
So it's such a great experience having her in my life when growing up, because obviously it would not be probably wouldn't be here today, but if it weren't for having her in my life, and just her ability to do that and balance the two, and never once have I ever heard her say something questionable, or something
nothing ever even close to being racist.
In my 23 years of life, I've never heard her say, and I think that's so incredibly difficult because of unconscious bias. And there's a Harvard, I think it was like a survey out there, and it just asks you a bunch of questions, and then it returns you a result of your unconscious bias. And I took it just part of a class one time. I took it, and I was actually biased towards white people. And I thought it was so weird. I like to think of myself as some very inclusive, and I don't really care what your skin color is. Like, I mean, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I don't see race, but like I truly don't really care where you come from, or like anything about you, just because of the the open background I've been raised in, but I was like biased against white people, and I was ashamed. I was like, I'm half white, like I can't be biased towards part of myself. That's just it's strange, and thinking about that and that result has been also, and with these recent events that's been going on, obviously you got the media painting as white versus black, going at each other.
That's a problem.
But that was something I see. It's calming because I see that the world isn't starting to see like what goes on in my head every day.
Yeah.
Because like that's I'm white and black, and that's just constantly going back and forth. I can say the N-word, but I'm also half white. Like, should I be saying it? And that's just such. It's maddening because when you start to think about it, because it happens to me every day. I wake up and I just you've got these controversial issues that you start to think about, and you're like, wait, can I really be the all judging, make this judgment off it? Because I'm obviously have this, I look a certain way, but I also am half white, so it's like it's so difficult, and now the world is seeing this whole controversy, and they're starting to see what a mixed person goes through. Obviously, it's different for African American, but what a mixed person goes through in their mind every day.
Yeah.
And it's a paradox. It's insane when you actually really think about it. But for me, I don't know anything else. I don't know anything different. That's all I've ever known. So that it's kind of cool to think about, but it's also just crazy to think about.
Definitely. So you got education reform as far as funding, criminal justice reform.
Yeah.
Fetishizing.
I'd say more that ties into education, but just trying to, rather than appropriating the culture, try to empathize it and embrace it. That goes within education, but I think that's such a big issue that I put it in another category, just because like something I've experienced and I've seen. Just kind of like if you didn't see it in a rap song or a music video, you wouldn't be doing that right now.
Yeah, for sure.
You wouldn't think that's okay to do. So
definitely. And then also to go back to what your mom did, where she traveled, like she got that exposure to where, and that like the exposure to different people to where she knows like I don't know what you guys go through. Like she has that understanding, which a lot of people don't have. But all right, so we got those three things. Anything else? If you had a magic wand?
Magic wand. That's definitely what I'd start with. Obviously, there's thousands of other things I do, but I think if I had a magic wand, those are the things I'd first start with.
Yeah, good call. What about you?
So I would start by empowering and educating the black community, obviously, and making sure these kids are growing up educated and with the same opportunities as white kid, obviously, and getting the same, and because that is like, I think education is the most powerful thing you have, honestly, the most powerful weapon.
Same support structure,
in the world.
family structure, education,
Absolutely.
the whole thing,
Yeah, and but also not abandoning who they are, and kind of being still in touch with like your background. Because I can admit, like, going to college and just growing up in America, I like lose touch with my culture, and my parents split apart. Me living with my mom with my dad, it was kind of like I lost touch with my dad and my dad's side. So it was great to kind of reconnect, especially during quarantine, and stay true to who I actually am. Like that's my heritage, like defines who I am, and like it shaped me today. So I mean that was great through quarantine. But I think that empowering the black community through education and jobs and better opportunities for everything, and just health, sanitation, all of that would help bring the black community up. And also like funding HBCUs, I think it was amazing. Unfortunately, wasn't privileged enough to attend one, but if I like could do it over again, maybe I'd do it. It'd be fun. But yeah, I think that funding those more, because you can go to school with and see people that are incredibly smart and exactly like you. And
also, just real quick for people that are listening that don't know, HBCU
is historically black college. Yeah.
Right,
so you'd be around your kin, your brethren that look exactly like you, but so you're not losing touch with who you are as a person, but you are growing up in a fair society with like all the opportunities as a white kid, and not the
racial prejudice, hate, and everything that you do just deal with on a daily basis. I think you'd find people that are a lot less sour. You know, I've met some African Americans that are extremely sour at life, and I cannot blame them at all. You know,
Sure.
and I just pray that I'm never like that when I'm older, and so 'cause I completely feel exactly, and they have every right to be mad because they were just been cheated. You know.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, you get a lot more people that are just not like that and able to give the same things to the kids as well. You know, you're just gonna fund a whole generation, a golden generation basically, of the Black community, which would just do numbers for us as a race, honestly. I think that also changing the prison structure, like Sam said, is ridiculous. I think that I think it is ridiculous now, but I think that'd be great to do. And the fact that you can't have an empty prison, like that empty prison is bad, it should run alarms in your head, you know, because it's like you always have to have someone locked up, you know what I mean? Even if they, you know, if let's say it's a perfect world, right? Like, I mean, obviously it's not, but you know, it's the fact that someone has to be locked up in a jail for it to operate should not sit well in your stomach. So I think that obviously enormous, huge prison reform, and just like just end privatization, like how prisons are privatized, and that people can gain wealth and basically monetizing the prison system. There's just so many problems off the top of my head I just can't even really think. So we got two of them down, I think. Empowering Black communities.
No, those are both good, but just to go back to one of the points that you made about losing touch with your culture, it's a very interesting point because America is kind of like, the culture is the culture of, it's like a match like of so many different cultures. So it's kind of like, at what point is it's like, okay, you have your Sudanese culture and your Muslim culture, and then also the American culture, but like, what is the American culture, and at what point do they like blend, and then what point do they not blend? Is like, should we all try to be considered Americans versus like, no, I'm gonna stay in my Sudanese culture, and like, you're not part of that, or like, I'm not part of whatever, and then like, that's a weird one, right? Because at the same time, like during the Olympics, right, when you're watching, like, you want Team USA to win, right? But then it's like, but also on like this other thing also, like, how do you balance that kind of, both of you, I guess?
It's definitely extremely difficult. I can't even give you a straight up answer. It's just like something you struggle with your whole life. You know, just kind of being mixed race and being the son of an immigrant. You know, it's kind of really tough to balance, obviously, and it's tough to go from, damn, should I be completely American, or should I be acting a certain way because I'm this, you know what I mean?
Do you ever catch yourself when you're like, yeah, go Team USA, you're like,
Yeah, for sure, I do. But then I think I was born and raised in America, that yes, I have a war experience and I've lived outside the country. I've traveled to numerous countries. I've been very fortunate for that. But I also do identify as an American, but I do also identify as as Sudanese, you know, and as like from the continent of Africa. So I do sympathize with, you know, everyone from the continent of Africa, whether you're African American or first generation. So yeah, it really is one of the most difficult things ever. You know, I just like having to balance, especially, you know, it used to be in the same place, right? My whole like life and everything was in the same place, and then after graduate college, you know, they split up. So it's kind of both literally and physically you are bouncing back and forth, and you're thinking, oh, what am I passing down to my kids? How am I going to treat that? Am I going to force them to be a certain way? You know what I mean? Because we weren't really forced; we were influenced as well. But you know, we could make our own decisions. But
have you thought about that?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I was thinking, like, obviously I want to pass it down because I'm extremely proud to be Sunni. I'm extremely proud to be a mixed race, like half African American, half white. You know what I mean? I'm not all ashamed of who I am, but I think it's tough to think like, damn, am I really gonna do that? Am I gonna name my kid something close to Izzadeen or Shamsuddin, and like have his last name is Mirghani, and you know them experience the exact same thing? But like, if you think about it, as a kid, if you're not like if you're not strong enough to take it, you know, like you kind of, it hurts. I've seen it impact people a lot more than it's impacted me and Samie.
And I've seen it in the eyes of people when I talk to them, like, you know, just about like just anything. It hurts. I've seen people at UMW. There's been kids at UMW I talked to that like have struggled with it a lot more than me and Samie.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And me and Samie, I'd say we have a lot thicker skin than a lot of other kids. You know, a lot of the kids become self-conscious and it hurts them more. And I'm not saying it doesn't hurt us, obviously, but it's just, you know.
No, I'm sure sports help with that too.
Oh,
you get like the thick skin and all the rest of it. So you guys are in a good spot as far as that goes. Not that you need to be in one, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but that is a great question. Honestly, I couldn't even give you an answer I wanted to. I just couldn't put my thoughts. You know, that's what I've been thinking. And yeah, I think everyone balances it differently. You know, you could probably interview 10 different mixed race people with different nationalities as well, and they'd give you 10 different responses.
Yeah. So what about you?
It's a really interesting question. I've been sitting here trying to collect my thoughts and try to articulate something. But obviously, African American culture is not Sudanese culture.
Right.
But I was raised as an African American. I have been treated in this country as an African American. So in that sense, it has pulled me towards, you know, being African American. But and just due to the political situation in Sudan, I've only been there twice.
Right.
There's
a lot of civil war over there and unrest, or.
Yeah. So there's a 50-year civil war. There was a couple genocides that actually was sponsored by the regime that was in power. So it was a whole mess of things. And with my dad being in the Sudanese military before leaving with my mom, that created some questions. And obviously going to America, with a white woman has raised some questions as well.
Yeah.
So that just made a whole mess of the situation, and it was so difficult for him to come back. So he wanted to keep the family safe. So I only went back once as a kid, and then 11 years later, I see this full-grown light-skinned walk through the door.
Yeah, you guys went back recently, didn't you?
Yeah, in December 2019. So going back, I'm like, dang, I've really been like, growing up, I tried to catch myself because I knew I was part of something greater than the African American community, and that was the Sudanese community. So that's definitely something I've struggled with always, and like you said, I try to catch myself being like, well, yeah, I'm American, but I'm not 100% American. Like, I don't really like that. So there's certain things that kind of just like keeps you up at night, for real. It keeps me up at night. I'll be thinking about it. I'm like, am I doing things right? Am I doing okay? So that's definitely a really interesting question though. But I think since I have been able to reconnect with my family overseas, I have been gravitating towards African American to Sudanese, which is it's nice. It's a nice feeling. You feel like you finally figured it out. But obviously, I'm 23, so I got a lot of hopefully I have a lot of life lived to live. I don't know. I might be going bounce back and forth, like you said.
Well, yeah. From my perspective, there's no reason why you can't bounce back and forth. If there's things that you like about each one, right? You can kind of grab those and like, this is how I want to live. Especially like you're talking about like what you're gonna do with your kids. It's like, well, you can try and take the best ones from each side and like
make it a little hybrid.
That seems to me like that's not a bad way to go. Obviously, like you guys are both young people, you can do whatever you want. But like, it seems to me like when I was thinking about that even before a couple days ago, and then it popped up in the conversation here. I was like, ooh, I should ask them because I wonder what they think. But I'm sure for every different like you were saying, every different race will have a different answer. It's difficult. That's why I feel like America is a great but weird place to be because it's not. Like you go to Germany, it's like, okay, we're gonna drink beer and eat sausage. Or like
eat some sauerkraut.
Yeah, some sauerkraut or whatever. It's like what's going on over there. But if you go here, depends on where you are. It's like you could be with Sudanese people, you could be with Latinos, you could be with like whoever, and they all have different parts of their culture that they keep, and then also different parts that are kind of like pushed more into like you would say like the American mainstream, and then there's like parts that they pull straight from mainstream, and so it's like this whole weird but wonderful mix at the same time. It's like I don't have to deal with like what you guys have to deal with because you grew up in suburbia. So. But that's what another again. I keep coming back to like one of the reasons why we wanted to start. It's like I want to know. That's why we're here, and like if we can share these stories with other people, it's like what good is it if you tell me, right? I mean, like it's good because you told me, but like if we can share this with other people as well, I think that's a great thing. So that's like the conversation with you, and we decided to start it. And I think this is a good place to end the first episode. So thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. Love your guys' stories, very enlightening. I'm sure hopefully you guys at home will have the same sort of experiences and or the same sort of like reactions listening to just like you never know what people are going through, man. So
Absolutely.
thank you guys again, and bye everybody.
It's been a great episode.